Welcome to The Oracle Scroll, a podcast for the spiritual seeker. Please join me, Kevin Walder, your host, as we explore living a spiritual life in a very mixed up world. Welcome back to another episode of The Oracle Scroll. It seems like it's been a while since we just sat and talked to see what is catching up with what's going on in our lives. And here we are. This is being recorded in the third week of December and 2019. So we're here at the end of a year, the end of a decade, and we're looking forward to where we'll go next and how we'll get there. I put something up recently on Facebook that was only there for a short time because it came across to me as being something that could be misunderstood very easily. So rather than take a chance on letting someone misunderstand, I took it down and I've decided to use it here in an audio recording so that maybe you can understand where I'm coming from a little bit more clearly. I prefaced all this with a statement about some personal issues I've had with sleep. It has evaded me for so many years, and I work really hard at being able to get a good night's sleep. I often say that, I've worked all night, and that's exactly how it feels. It's when you can't turn your mind off and you just keep going over everything and trying to find the flaws in everything and trying to figure out how you can fix everything. It's exhausting. So not only did you not sleep, but you've expended quite a lot of energy, at least mentally. So with that in mind, this was something that I actually worked on. This came out of one of those episodes where I just could not stop my mind from going over and over. And it made me think that maybe this is something that other people suffer from as well. So I'm going to share with you these thoughts. And remember, these are things that came out of the deep recesses of my mind in the middle of the night. So these are not things I normally would talk about, perhaps. Some of them are. So I titled this piece. Well, I changed the title on this piece because I started off with I, and then I realized, no, we need to make this more inclusive. So we've been lied to. Oh my gosh. Wow. And I think for a lot of us, we're just starting to comprehend the extent of how frequently and just absolutely everywhere in every aspect of our lives, we have been lied to. We've been lied to by kings and bishops, presidents and evangelists. We've been lied to by senators and judges, ancestors and parents. We've been lied to by teachers and mentors, institutions and banks. We've been lied to by lawyers and law enforcement, scientists and researchers. We've been lied to by lovers and friends, reformers and reactionaries. We've been lied to by entertainers and media. And we've been lied to by advertisers and hucksters. So then I stopped and contemplated all the things, and to me, honestly, it is overwhelming some days when I stop and think about all the things we were taught as young people growing up in this country, all the things that we were taught to be afraid of, all the things that we were taught to be proud of, all the things that we were taught to correct and change, those were all lies. Most of them, at least, were lies. And yes, many of those issues and problems still exist because we were lied to. We were told they had been solved, they had been changed, things had adjusted, and things had evolved, and we were now on our way to something better, and we weren't. So, what have we learned out of this lifetime of deception and being groomed and deceived into playing a role that these purveyors of lies have written for us? What have we learned? Oh my God, this is probably the most distressing point of the whole point here. We have learned how to lie. We have learned how to lie as a means of self-preservation because it's obvious in our world that the success and the keys to success on this plane of existence is all wrapped up in the quality and or the quantity of the lies and deceptions you can spread. How often in my life have I realized that I needed to remove myself from a toxic situation only to put myself in an even more toxic situation? How often have I been convinced that I finally had located the truth? And this has happened, if you're idealistic at all, believe me, this has happened many, many times, more than you care to count. How often have we been convinced that we finally located the truth just to discover that it's another lie? It's been a lifetime endeavor learning to trust not anyone else, because that is still ongoing, but learning to trust ourselves, learning to trust our intuition. Do you realize that we were raised from the ground up, from infancy? We were raised to believe we were incapable. We were not capable. We were not capable of making our own decisions. We were not capable of making our own moral and spiritual and mental decisions, much less physical decisions, things that would have an impact on our physical well-being. We're not capable of that. We have to rely on the experts, whether they be scientists and researchers who pretty much can put out a study that supports any side of any argument, depending on who's paying. That's distressing. And if it's something, a little more abstract and a bit more beyond the tangible, then you have to rely on your religious leaders, your spiritual leaders, the people who will help you to understand why you can't understand. And that's really all they're there for. They're there to help you understand why you can't understand. Well, you can't understand because you've never accepted the fact that you have the power and the divinity, and you have the intuition. You have the answers. This is the part that has has always perplexed me, and I'm just as guilty as anybody. I don't accept that I'm worthy many, many times. But think about that for a moment. If you accepted the fact that your intuition and your perception was actually accurate and you could depend on it and rely on it and use it as your guide, and you don't need the pastor, you don't need the attorney, you don't need all these other people who have lined up to profit from your insecurity. So grasp that fact. Understand that fact. Spend as much time as you need alone with your thoughts so that you understand that fact. But every time I offer readings or do anything of that sort where I'm working with people in the public, I off it's always the case. They know the answer before they ever approach you and sit down for a reading. They know the answer already. All they're looking for is validation. They're looking for some confirmation that, okay, I was right. That's the only thing that they're using you for. You are their sounding board. So learning to trust our intuition is huge. And that's where my passion is the tarot. It's a tool. It's a trigger for the intuition. It helps you to gain further insight. And sometimes it'll cause you to look in a direction you might not have been looking before. So it's helpful in that regard. But that's all it is. It is just a tool. It is there to be of assistance in putting us in touch with the important aspects of the question that we're asking. Now, that brings me to a few points about myself and the way I conduct myself in this community. Because of my perception here and all of the history that has gone into making this pessimist that I am, and I'm not a pessimist, but you understand what I'm saying. I am, I'm a doubter, and I'm a skeptic, and I want to know more. And if there's a reason to doubt, I want to know why, and I want to know what the reasons are that I shouldn't. So I'm very slow to warm to new ideas, new philosophies, and new teachers. When someone pops onto the scene and they are something out of the ordinary and they're touting a new modality that no one's ever heard of, I stand back and I wonder, okay, what are you trying to gain? And why do I need to give up my autonomy to accept it? So I'm very slow at that. I am very picky about the ideas and teachers that I allow to influence my thinking. And I appreciate it when other people do the same. And there's also I guess for the want of a better way to put it, you could call it guilt by association, which that's something most people understand. Similar people and similar ideas and similar ideals are drawn to each other. So if you're milling about in a crowd that is just questionable, maybe it only has 1, 2, 3 members who are questionable, who do not demonstrate a real spiritual depth that I could admire and want to emulate, then I'm probably going to avoid the whole group because I just don't need that kind of energy surrounding me. And I am the first to admit I am not as sensitive to energy as I should be at times. My husband is extremely sensitive to energy, and we've often walked into a business or walked into when we were house shopping, for example, we walked into one where he just had this feeling that washed over him that was a very negative feeling. He describes it as like walking through a cobweb. That's about as negative as you can get. And so he expressed that and let that one pass. And that's the kind of thing that I may not feel it in that quite exact and dramatic fashion, but I can notice and I notice and I watch the way people interact with each other and I watch how people treat each other. And I am going to tell you that there are times when I am so disappointed in my community. And I see things that tell me that some, for some people, it's all talk. It's all just a belief system that has no merit, no power, and no real roots that would hold you to it. And I feel very sad about that because it just it's so unnecessary. And if you cannot express your compassion, if you cannot actually be helpful, as the Dalai Lama says, if you cannot find a way to help your fellow humans, then at least don't hurt them. And I see sometimes we do that. We hurt each other without any reason or necessity other than ego. And that is why I sometimes will sort of pull away. I will sort of position myself in a place where I can observe what's going on, but I will not necessarily get involved in a situation where I feel I'm in a questionable energy situation. And I certainly will not engage in anything deep with a group of people that I do not fully and completely trust with every fiber of my being. So as we move into the new year, 2020, and we begin to uncover new aspects of ourselves and new motivations, perhaps, we will be able to build on a new foundation. So join us as we begin to explore the rest of the story. The minor arcana has a lot to offer as well. We've been through the major arcana and we're going to continue to bring in guests as well. So join us and hopefully we will all learn so much in the next few months that we'll be able to approach the next year with a lot more confidence than we had this one. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Oracle Scroll. Please forward any questions, comments, or inquiries to theoraclescroll@gmail.com, and we'll look forward to entertaining you again very soon in the next episode.